Hey, Kermit Weeks here, Fantasy of Flight, and we're going to take a little trip down to Australia. Matt Denning is doing a boomerang for me. I thought it was pretty appropriate that I stand in front of my CAC Whirlaway, which was the same company that built the boomerang, which is a little fighter version in World War II. If you'll remember, I visited a little while back, went down and saw Matt, and I asked Matt if he would be kind enough to do a little video on his own. So let's go see what Matt's been up to.
Hello and greetings from southeast Queensland in Australia. My name's Matt Denning and Kermit has asked me to put together a bit of a video update on the work that I'm doing on his CAC Boomerang Fighter project. I hope you enjoy. This piece of aircraft structure, which you could almost consider to be a unique form of artwork in its own right, is actually the upper skin from Kermit's boomerang wing centre section. Now this particular piece of structure was from Boomerang serial number A46174, which served with number 4 Squadron RAF in New Guinea during the Second World War. In May of 1944, this particular aircraft had a landing accident at Cape Gloucester in New Britain, where it was based at the time. It was pretty badly damaged as it finished up upside down. However, it was recovered back to NADZAB, which was a repair and salvage unit depot at the time. It appears that it was far too badly damaged to consider repair, and so the aircraft was just dumped off to the side of the airfield in the jungle. There it remained until rediscovered in 1974 by a group of aircraft enthusiasts. It was recovered from NADZAB back to Lae, and then from there it went across to New Zealand under the care of Charles Darby. Charles had it for approximately 10 years, and then it was acquired by Kermit in the mid-1980s. From that point it was recovered back to Florida. Fast forward to 2015 and Kermit sent his collection of boomerang components to me to restore, and in amongst that were the remains of boomerang number 174. So this particular skin is set up here at the moment to act as a confirming template for the new skin to be made based on all the original holes in this particular piece of structure. This original piece of skin, which is acting quite well to be a template for the new skin that will be produced from it, unfortunately can't be used itself in a flying aeroplane anymore. It suffered from significant damage whilst it was in the jungle. As you can see in the lower portions here, the skin is quite badly distorted and bent. Some of the original structure inside is pretty well twisted, and across the other side here the skin's even been torn away. So unfortunately this original skin can't be reused in the restoration. However, the majority of it will be used as a template to make the new skin. There are some parts from this upper structure though that will be reusable in the flying aircraft. In particular there's this piece here and the equivalent over this side of the wing centre section, which are doubler pieces, which came from this original centre section. In fact, you can still see its original part number in various places on these parts, and they've restored quite well. The upper pieces, unfortunately, had corrosion, and I'll just grab one and show you here. So the equivalent of this particular panel, you can see the corrosion that's blown out into this bottom corner. And other parts of corrosion are coming through its structure as well, so it can no longer be used in a flying aeroplane. However, by duplicating it from new material, we can make sure that the centre section is in the best possible condition for when it's due to return to flight again. So these 4 doubler panels, which consist of the 2 original structure panels which have been restored, plus the basis of 2 new replacement panels above, end up being sandwiched between the fuselage frame and this piece of wing structure when the aircraft is assembled. Let's just have a look around the other side of this particular piece of structure, which, as you can see if I stand back here, is all enclosed in a large steel frame jig to keep it all properly aligned for reassembly. And you can see here there's quite a significant corrugated section that exists below the upper skin. There is a centre rib as well, which is shown here. And these two large bays will ultimately hold the centre section fuel tanks for the aircraft. The particular corrugate skin shown here is the original from 174, which has been completely de-riveted. All these other doubler pieces which you can see running through here, there's all sorts of heavy sections of channeling, and there are additional doubler pieces, have all been completely removed, the skin paint stripped, inspected for any corrosion, treated, reprimed, and now it's been placed back into the jig. All these doubler pieces have been reinstalled, and all riveting that can be done before the skin goes on has been done. Just in a trial fit is this particular front spar web plate, which won't be used in the restoration. In fact, it came from another boomerang wing centre section that's been restored for a Victorian-based project for duty paying to Kooragang. So this spar web plate is just giving some support at the moment to the lower edge or the forward edge of the corrugate, and also this section of the centre rib. A brand new web plate, in fact all new components for the front spar of the wing centre section have now been produced for Kermit, and we'll just go and have a look at where all that's sitting in its own assembly jig at the moment. All the brand new components that have been made for Kermit's wing centre section front spar have now all been treated, primed and installed into this assembly jig, which really consists of some steel angle top and bottom being carefully aligned to make sure that the spar caps remain very straight and true during the riveting process. So everything you see here is new material that's been formed, and it's all due to be riveted together very soon as an assembly in its own right. We just pop around the other side here and take in the front face of this front spar as well. All doublers and stiffeners that can be attached at this point have been, and once all this is riveted into place, the spar will be removed from this jig, moved along relative to its current position, so that any remaining structure that still has to go in will be able to be riveted in at that point. So here we have Ashley clearing some holes as we're riveting up the front spar. So we're making a bit of progress. As you can see, we've already got a few rivets in place. 3/16 rivets going in at the moment. All good. Okay, we've just downed tools and Ashley's just gone home, but we've been able to complete the final assembly of the front spar of Kermit's wing centre section. So all of the stiffeners, doublers, all the rivets are in place, including the anchor nuts or nut plates. So everything's all there, ready for assembly into the main jig. And also we'll be fitting up the newly machined undercarriage castings to this frontal region of the main spars fairly soon as well. So they've arrived back from Victoria after going through the machining process, and we'll open up that box very soon that they're in and just see what we've got. I'm looking forward to having them back again. We'll just come outside here a bit. So here's the box that contains the newly machined undercarriage castings. This is one of the ones it's going to replace, which is virtually all gone from its time in the wet tropical conditions in New Guinea. So here's Kermit's original wing centre section as it currently sits. Here's the other undercarriage support casting, looking a little better, but again it's magnesium alloy and it wouldn't have been any good to reuse in a flying aeroplane. Here's the front spar of Kermit's original wing centre section from Boomerang A46 174. So that's what we've just built up in the jig, and it's that part that will be replaced by that structure. Okay, so all the screws have been removed from the box, so let's have a look inside and see what we have. Okay, a bit of packaging to remove. Wow, and there we have one of Kermit's newly machined castings. The two other original castings that were sent down as templates for the machining process, and the other one of Kermit's castings. So I'll just go and unstrap all of these parts and see how they look when they're out of the box. Just unpacked from the crate that's come up today from Victoria, from the machining company that has worked on the undercarriage support castings for Kermit's wing centre section. We have here the existing main spar from the front of the wing centre section with the remnants of the starboard undercarriage support casting, which are pretty much gone because this magnesium alloy really suffered badly in the jungle conditions of high humidity and high rainfall, so it's literally just eroded away to nothing. You can see here there's the location where the lock plunger used to go straight down, and a couple of large attachment bolts on the side further down. This is what it should look like. The white painted areas on this original casting show where there's machining that's been done, and the rest is really just the raw casting. But these particular green and white castings were sent down as well to aid as patterns and samples for the machining that had to be done to the new old stock castings that had never been touched. And so here's the new old stock casting that will go back into Kermit's wing centre section. It's had all the machining done to it that's required for the locking of the undercarriage and the fixing of the uplock forgings, the pinion underneath, which is new old stock, which comes right up through this part of the casting and is held in place with this very large BSF nut on the top. So all these parts will come together to form a great serviceable undercarriage support assembly for Kermit's Boomerang. Down here on the floor is the web plate from the front spar of a Boomerang wing centre section. It was positioned in the jig just recently to help with alignment of other parts of the main structure going back in, but it's just been replaced by Kermit's brand new front spar assembly, which has just come out of its own assembly jig. So it's now nestled in here as a trial fit for the very first time. All is sitting well, and it will gradually be riveted in place and all the structure positioned around it, and we'll keep building up this wing centre section for Kermit. Here's an overview of Kermit's original Boomerang wing centre section as it currently sits, with the main corrugate skin removed along the gun bay area. You can also see in place at the bottom there the original front spar assembly, and there's one of the undercarriage support castings with its new replacement that will go into the rebuilt centre section. Up here is the original rear spar assembly, fuel tank selector, various fuel pipes and electrical fittings all through here, the identification lights underneath. You can also see here at the end of the rear spar there's a fairly thick angle piece that goes through here, plus another angle over the top of it, which helped support all the trailing edge of this centre section and the rear spar against an end plate on the centre section. So I've had to recently remake these components here because, as you can see, these originals have got a lot of damage, corrosion, distortion, and really need to be made of new metal. So we'll just wander over in a moment and we'll have a look at Kermit's new rear spar assembly as it sits in the main assembly jig. Here's an upper view of the new rear spar assembly that's been made for Kermit's wing centre section. So over in this corner are two of the four new plates that I've had to make in this area as well. So these help to support the rear spar against the end plate of the wing centre section. They're all being positioned and drilled off in the jig so that they're going to remain in the exact position they need to be in the final assembly. So just to recap, newly produced rear spar, rebuilt centre rib with a lot of original components, renewed corrugate skin that goes right through from one end of the wing centre section to the other, and a newly rebuilt main spar assembly. We have set up inside here against another wing centre section that was completed recently for duty pay into Kurrigan, a piece of structure that we refer to as the beak, because it tends to stick out from the front of the wing centre section, and you can see the curved reinforcement pieces on the edges of the skin which act as the inside edges of the wheel well. So this is the area where the main wheels will retract up into the underside of the boomerang fuselage structure. So this particular beak structure here is quite important to control the positioning of all these other fairings and brackets and pieces that are part of the wheel fairing structure. Also inside there we have the oil cooler bracket extending back, and visible there is the top surface of that beak structure again. So on the bench over here we actually have the makings of the beak for Kermit. Some of these parts are original pieces that came with his 174 project. I've done a final pre-assembly of all the various parts that go into what we call the beak structure, which sits out forward of the front spar of the wing centre section. And those curved pieces on either side are the inner limits of where the undercarriage legs retract into the wing centre section and the wheels come up into that area either side. So as you can see from this particular structure, there's a couple of side ribs and a lower skin. Down inside here there's this unusual pipe assembly, which is basically a manifold that draws in air through a little scoop from the outside. So if I just lift up this panel and we have a look on the underside surface of the skin, you can see this little scoop here. There's sort of a side profile of it. So that just takes in fresh air from outside the aircraft, comes up into this low little box structure that's just here, out through these two tubes, and then that cooling air is distributed higher up above this panel to both engine magnetos, just to keep them cool in the engine accessory bay whilst the aircraft's flying along. This particular manifold structure needs to be riveted in at the very early stages of this assembly process, because there's just no way at all that you can get it inside there once these side channels have gone on, and even when the top skin goes in place and that gets riveted in, then you have very limited access to get to the rivets, the rivet tails of this structure to do it up. So we'll go ahead very soon and start doing the final riveting on all this structure. There's all these side members here, there's little doubler channels inside, little stiffeners, all part of the original structure of this beak section from 174. And any reusable parts have been all overhauled and all going back into reuse in this piece of very interesting structure.
Yeah, so I think that was a pretty cool update from Matt, and I got to tell you, I'm going to send this out to some of the other shops that are doing work outside of Fantasy of Flight, and we're going to do the gauntlet has been laid down for the other guys to get their GoPro cameras out and give us little updates like this from Mechanics Corner around the world. Kermit Weeks over and out.